Hello everybody, welcome back to Back Out of the Case. This is Skyflight 44, aka X44, and today I'm going to be playing some Gran Turismo 3. If I'm doing this, obviously I'm doing an endurance race, and I haven't done one of these in a while. I'm most likely going to be doing some professional league races later on. I have to actually do at least one endurance race because I did complete two of them. However, one of them, the Trial Mountain Endurance Race, I kind of scrapped. I'm going to do that one again later on. And, well, I still have technically 9 endurance races to do out of 10. And I've completely finished the Rally, Beginner, and Amateur events. And I'm getting closer and closer to getting the professional events done. The only one I really haven't touched is the endurance races, so we're going to be doing this now. We'll be doing Super Speedway, and I believe, if I remember correctly, this car should be good enough that I can actually beat it. And, well, if I remember correctly, I checked. Yeah, and my car should definitely be able to beat all of these. So, let's just get this on. This is gonna suck though. I mean, seriously, 100 actual laps of this. Oh, actually, I was watching a couple of days ago, a little bit, I didn't catch a lot of it, but the Indianapolis, probably fucking up that. But that race, the Indiana, fuck, I still can't get that. The 500 race. Oh well, can't speak today. But that was a pretty interesting race, especially later on with that crash. I was actually watching, I believe it was the Montreal race, F1 was earlier. I also got to catch the crash, the big crash, then that one too. That was interesting. They actually had footage of the right before as it was going on. Oh shit. And that was quite interesting. I'm not too big into watching actual races. It's more fun to actually go and play a game like that. But you can find some nice shit in those. Though I have been playing quite a lot of games now. Recently, I switched over from playing games to reading again, because I kind of do that. I switch from one to the other, and I'm currently in reading mode. To be honest, how I planned it out, I'm probably not going to be out of reading mode for at least a month. Possibly 2 to 3. Though when it comes to later weeks, I'm probably going to be reading a lot less. And I'm going to be doing other things, but in March, especially late March and April, I played a lot of games. I played some games I never played before. I actually beat in a couple of games I bought and really never played, like Crimson Sea, which is a pretty cool action game that the story's absolute shit. Well, not so much the story, is just the story's kind of bland or generic, and the voice acting is Resident Evil 1 terrible. But the gameplay's solid. But one thing I'm probably gonna get at least some amount of questions on is, why haven't I really done anything with Need for Speed Rivals? I uploaded 5 videos, 5 parts for. I recorded 13, mind you, and well, I have no idea how I actually edited up those 5 parts, because the trying to edit up anything after that was nigh impossible. And the game itself is boring. Really boring. So I kind of stopped. However, I'm thinking about, you know, going back and restarting it, and I'm gonna have to record it a little bit in a different way, but if I can, I should be able to finish that game. The only big problem about it is the game is so boring. Not to mention, the last time I tried recording it, I was having a tough time just being the AI. I probably could have, you know, seen if I could have got some more actual, what was it called, upgrades. However, I kind of wanted to go and do some of the new tracks in the game, because that game loves to reuse circuit tracks. It's like I was trying to count in the quick race menu how many tracks are actually in the game. There's like 10 tracks in the game for circuit racing, and that's pretty bothersome, because by the time I was done like 10, 12, 15 rounds of one track, it was getting very monotonous. I mean, there's like 6 actual tracks used in the first set of events, the first, you know, level of the regular circuit racing. Then going on, and the second one, there's like maybe one more track that's used, and one of the tracks in the first 6 wasn't used all that often. So it's the game, how the game actually works, and why this is so stupid with how they actually had all the tracks. They should have put all the tracks earlier. It's the fact that the game plays out like an actual checklist. How I view it is, it looks like, you know, the racing looks like you're playing a console Need for Speed game. However, everything else is a Game Boy Advance Need for Speed game, and how it's structured. And when I say more of the Game Boy Advance games, it's heavily like Need for Speed Underground 2 on the Game Boy Advance. And I think the DS version also went this way, in which you had all these different areas you could actually go for, like you had your drift racing, you had your drag racing, you had your circuit racing, and you could go and do any race you wanted to once it was unlocked. And it really wasn't all that hard to unlock them. It was basically just do the thing beforehand and you'll unlock it. This game does the same thing. At the same time, it also makes you go and actually play all of the events 3 times over. Apparently, you know, getting harder as you go through it. And the thing about it is, you accumulate driver points, and you accumulate more driver points as you complete them over and over and over. You know, 3 times over. And this is heavily monotonous. You have to do this to get the upgrades, so you can actually go and have a bit more fun and easier time with the later circuit races. And that's what I think driver points do anyway, because you have, when you actually unlock an upgrade, I don't know about the upgrades themselves, but the performance upgrades come eventually. You actually have to go and beat at least a certain amount of races or driver points. Don't know really I don't know which one it is. But you have to do that to get more performance parts, and the game's kind of screwed up with how it's structured, in my opinion. It's not fun. It's not fun at all. And I was kind of getting annoyed with that. But can you blame me? I'm going and pitting in the next actual this actual lap. I'll probably go every 15 laps, but I'm gonna be trying to go out for Need for Speed Rivals again. To be honest, kind of makes me want to go and play the Game Boy Advance actual Need for Speed games, but I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that for a long ass time unless I'm completely no idea what I should play. Then I might play the game. But one thing I have noticed with some of the games I've been playing, and I also have the problem, the opposite actual, I also have a problem with the opposite in some games, and it's the tracks. Gran Turismo 3 didn't have all that many tracks, and it kind of makes you play through the same ones a lot, though they do have, reverse variants in which you actually do, like Deep Forest, and then later on Deep Forest Reverse, and that can make all the difference when, it comes to variety. However, after playing Need for Speed Rivals, I've been quite big on, actually having variety in the tracks. Just because, again, the entire reason why I was going in between all the circuit races, I was having, drag races. Sorry, my voice gave out for a second. But, drift races, drag races, drift attack races anyway, the nitro run races. All of this was just to make it so I wasn't getting bored out of my mind with the actual game. And so maybe all of you weren't getting bored with the actual game itself. Which is saying something about the game if I have to try and avoid making it boring. But the amount of tracks, granted, I definitely would have liked at least 3 or 4 more tracks into Gran Turismo 3. Like, it would have been nice if, something like Autumn Ring was brought back. That one, really fun track. And I don't think it was only in the first one at this point. It came back in the 4th, but I don't think it was in the second one. Was it Grindwald? Something like that from the second game? Holy shit. Wonderful track. One of my favorite tracks in the series. Only in the second game. Absolutely loved that track. It kind of reminded me about... Actually, it's kind of like a trip through, it kind of reminds me of going through, European road, right beside a forest. And I'm a sucker for forest type tracks, especially in simulation racing games. Like Deep Forest, Trial Mountain, and nice real track. I believe it was Maple Valley or something like that. I forgot what it was. It's on. I believe it's a track in Connecticut. It's on Forza Motorsport. It's a great track too, and just the colors. I absolutely love it. But Grindwald, whatever it's called, was very much like that, and it had all these nice turns which were kind of had possibility of being a little bit difficult and interesting. And considering the fact that only in the second game, it would look absolutely wonderful on something, hell, even Gran Turismo 3. That would have looked great. But they didn't bring it back. Any other tracks that I would have loved to actually put into this one would have been something like, damn, what was the track called? Oh crap, I forgot. Oh well. If there's anything else I would have liked them to put in this game was the short tracks. Seattle short, Rome circuit, the short variant, Rome short, and special stage or Clubman stage 5 or whatever it was called. The special stage Route 5 short variant. Those three probably could have been easy, easy to put into this game. The only short variants of those. Not to mention Grand Valley East. Probably wouldn't have been too hard to create out of those other tracks. And what you could have actually done with that was save the longer variants for later in the game. While this wouldn't have been completely wonderful, you're not really adding too much to the actual game, but at least you wouldn't have been as bored. Like, you've been going through Seattle Circuit, Rome Circuit, Grand Valley, Special Stage Route 5, through the entire game, and by the end of it, you're still kind of bored with these tracks. Which is one of the reasons why I sort of didn't play this game straight. But, there has to be a couple more. Oh, that's another track they could have put into it. It was kind of an easy track, but, I really like Tahiti Road from Gran Turismo 2. Tahiti Road was a pretty good track. Now, other than that, I don't really remember any tracks in the second game, because I really haven't played it in a long time, that were cut out. Oh yeah, that's right. Red Rock Valley. Wonderful track. Oh, that track would have been great in this game. Those tracks would have been, if they actually added to this game, would have made this game so much better. The added track variety would have done, would have been great for the game. Would have made the game a little bit less monotonous. Now, Gran Turismo 5 and 6 don't have the long single-player games. However, they have a shitload of tracks. What this does, it gives me the very opposite feeling, in which they don't use the tracks enough, and especially in Gran Turismo 5 and 6. I haven't played too much of 6, but definitely 5 was the original tracks they had that were made for Gran Turismo 1, and some that were, in the later games that were original, did not get used at all. Except Grand Valley, because, Grand Valley is the big, when you think Gran Turismo, you're gonna think Grand Valley. But, not having enough tracks is bad, but having too many and not using them enough makes it so you never get good at them. You really never get good at them. You don't really remember any of them. And Gran Turismo 5 was big enough because it had over 50 freaking tracks. And I could not for the life of me really remember many of them. Now, Gran Turismo 4, on the other hand, I actually believe had quite a lot of tracks, but at the same time managed to use them enough. You had your rally tracks, you had all the ones in your special condition events put away for those. Then you had certain like more like ethnic tracks, late game tracks, like Infineon would, you know, didn't really appear in anything that wasn't like American focused, if I remember correctly. Damn, what was that freaking long ass track? But the long tracks, like the ones that took a couple of minutes, like 6 minutes, 8 minutes, those were late game tracks, and you know, they weren't used the entire time. At the same time, oh, that's another game, another track they could have done this one, High Speed Ring. But stuff like High Speed Ring, Trial Mountain, Deep Forest, Grand Valley were used quite a lot, and they were used enough that you could remember them. Autumn Ring, another one. Autumn Ring Mini is another variant that was actually done. El Capitan was another great one that was used quite a bit. And to be honest, Gran Turismo 2 and 4 are probably my favorites in the series, other than some of the terrible decisions, in my opinion, that they did with Gran Turismo 4, like the 24-hour races. Fuck you! You think I'm actually gonna play a race for 24 hours? If I get to Gran Turismo 4, I'm probably not gonna be putting up a 24-hour video. That would take literally an entire day to render. And I'm not kidding. Not to mention, uploading it would probably take an entire day. Damn. Oh well. What else did I actually have to say about that? But I'll just get back on to another topic I wanted to talk about. I was doing a little bit of emulation early in February. Actually, in January and February to the very beginning of March. That's when I kind of stopped. I played a couple of different games, not too many that I was emulating. Like I went and did the Lord of the Rings Conquest, which probably could have been a little bit better quality-wise. But then again, the game was incredibly short. I also did like 2 different actual leisure play videos for Asphalt 2, which is a really good game. If you ever really want to go and play that game, I definitely say go for it. And if you're ever trying to go for like racing games on the DS, because that's kind of difficult to get some good ones on there. Though I have found some, you know, a couple of good ones. That's definitely one of my favorites, along with Mario Kart DS, and holy shit, Need for Speed Nitro. I'll get to that in a second though. But I also did a video on Amnesia. I'm not Amnesia. Sorry, wrong one. No, not Condemned. Holy shit! I'm going through all of these horror games in my head. What was the one on the DS? What was the one on the DS? Fuck! I can't remember. But it was a really good game, and I'm trying to think. No, I'm not going to be able to actually get the... My mind wants to go to Sanitarium, but that's not it. Oh well. I actually played, you know, a couple of different DS games, and one of the ones I didn't show, but I really did love was Need for Speed Nitro. And that's actually probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite, actual racing game on the DS. Now, it's actually pretty funny. The frame rate on the game, or just the frame rate is locked to like 12 in that game. Kind of like a lot of the racing games on it. The only game I've actually seen that tried going, you know, much farther than that was Burnout Legends, and that game sucked mainly because it was chugging, because it was trying to have a really, really big frame rate. But a lot of the ones I've seen go around like 15, maybe 14, 12 at the lowest. Need for Speed Nitro actually went down to like 9 some points, and I was still at 100% for, you know, for the emulation. It was still going like 100%. So that was all the game's fault. The game is so much fun. I was very, very big on the kind of the blob little system in which you actually, and the blob, there's a huge art system. Well, not art system, I should say, more like a color system in which you have to go and color the actual world. And Need for Speed Nitro, you also have to do that. You actually, if you could collect all these different markers, all these different items in a specific actual point, you would paint that in your own colors. If your opponents do so, they'll paint that area in their own colors, and it's just so much fun. And to be honest, I really couldn't actually, I was impressed with what they actually did on the DS in this game. And along with that, the actual tracks were wonderful, quite interesting. Not to mention, some of the other things the game has you do is quite interesting. The only problem I ever have is that mission in which you actually have to go and knock things over on that beach. Fuck it. Because your control on your car on sand is shit. And at low actual speeds, like you should be at in that one, it's even worse. But other than that, wonderful game. If you haven't actually gone and tried it, it's definitely a arcade game. I consider Need for Speed games to be in the middle of semi-simulator and arcade. They're not full semi-simulator, but they definitely handle a lot more realistically than, let's say, an arcade game like Burnout. Burnout's definitely an arcade style racing game, and that one as well is also arcade style racing game, which I quite like these, but damn, it's kind of annoying. But I gotta admit that I've played Need for Speed Carbon, Need for Speed Most Wanted, Need for Speed Underground 2 on the DS. I've played Burnout Legends on the DS. I've played Asphalt on the DS. I've played quite a few racing games that absolutely sucked on the DS. I haven't got to try the Ridge Racer one. I haven't got to try another, some of the other ones. I did get to play this other one. It was like Sideswipe, maybe. I don't really remember the title. I probably should have gone and checked the actual title before I actually did this. But it was this little actual racer that was kind of like Burnout. It was, the visuals was more like, it seemed more like toy cars on a, toy track kind of feel. However, there was explosions and shit, and it was actually ran really smoothly. The emulator couldn't do the visuals completely as what I would have liked, but oh well. The game itself, though, was quite a lot of fun. And along with that, Asphalt 2, Mario Kart DS, and damn, what was that game called? Need for Speed Nitro. I've realized that there's actually some pretty good racing games on the DS. Because again, I played Grid, I've gone and played a lot of different games, a lot of different racing games on DS, and most of them were shit. Need for Speed games, a Gran Turismo game, the Wipeout games, Burnout Legends on the PSP. Generally good games. At least I'll say that the feeling and control in those games are really good, and they actually make me want to play. Need for Speed Rivals being boring is probably the one exception, though I had to go back and try Most Wanted on the PSP because I initially stopped it because, well, I was kind of bored with the game, and my tolerance, well, I should say tolerance, kind of makes it sound like the game's going to be boring and I'm just giving a mediocre game praise or just overlooking its faults, but I'll probably be able to appreciate that game more now than I did when I originally had my PSP. Which kind of, you know, sheds light on the entire, this is what you were like in high school. This is what you're like after high school, after a couple of years after high school anyway. But, yeah, I really had to try that. PSP is just so much better than the DS and actual racing games. I've not really looked at any of the racing games. Oh, fuck. On the PS Vita. I kind of want to. But the racing games on, you know, iOS, I absolutely despise them. I still haven't been able to try any racing games except for Mario Kart 7, which some people claim it's boring. I just don't really play too much Mario Kart. I liked it, but I also got to play Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing Transformed. Something. Titles like that, something. The transformed variant of that game. That was a lot of fun. When I actually got my DS, I didn't actually have any games on it. I wasn't able to get a game for it for a little while, so I actually had to stick to... I actually bought the 3DS on a whim, just because I found it ridiculously cheap. But I actually used a lot of demos, and one of the demos I could actually go and download, and I thought probably would be a bit of fun was actually that game. And for I really enjoyed it just because the even when you actually, you know, go and play on a track, it could crumble, and you would you would go through the track one way, racing on an actual car, and then, you know, the second lap you would be going on an actual, what was it called, on like a hovercraft, and then you'd go the plane wise. It was kind of reminded me of, you know, Diddy Kong Racing, but it was really, really interesting. Oh, you son of a bitch. And just the actual game giving me, what was it called? You know, even when they're in the same track, even when I could actually be given, with each lap, different obstacles, while not unique to it. Definitely one of the first times I ever raced like that. There was some Mario Kart stages, I believe that did that. The big one I'm thinking of was that volcano stage, in which more of the actual track kind of disappeared, kind of crumbled after a little while. So that kind of had it, but oh, that's actually one of the games I will be getting on the 3DS eventually. I really wish I actually had a 3DS capture card. Or at least one of the DS capture cards, so I didn't actually have to emulate DS games. But that would actually be quite a lot of fun. Oh. Okay, that's fine. Probably could have gone through that turn a bit faster. Now, damn. I've been thinking about what racing game I'm going to be doing next. Not as an actual, you know, something that's going to replace Need for Speed, Rivals, or Midnight Club. Oh yeah, by the way, MotorStorm, I'm not going to start up again until I get a new computer. Once I do get a new computer, MotorStorm is going to be one of the first things I'm going to actually tackle. But what game should I might start it up before I finish this game, but what game should I actually go and replace Gran Turismo 3 with? I'm going to be going with the long racing game. There's no doubt about it, I'm going to be going with the long racing game. I might actually just stick to a simulation racing. Out of the ones I'm thinking about doing, I kind of feel like either going with this F1 game. I haven't played in a while. I've kind of been itching to play. It's not one of the recently made ones anyway. Let's just throw that out there. But I've kind of wanted to go and play that. I'm thinking about going and doing another Gran Turismo game, or possibly Forza Motorsport. That series is I have problems with, just like the Gran Turismo series. But the first couple of entries I really did enjoy, especially the first one. You motherfucker. But the Forza Motorsport is definitely an actual one I want to play. Actually, it has games that I'm thinking about playing. I was playing Midtown Madness 3 not too long ago. I was going to go and play through in a couple of days the entire game. And you know, I was recording and I had a lot of fun initially. Then I figured out that the game's actually full of a lot of bullshit that I wasn't going to be dealing with. And I kind of stopped playing the game. How do I get this? The game got to be quite annoying. The fact that there was no map and the fact that there was no actual map and the game itself, like you know, you could pause in a racing game, or you know, go and have an actual, you know, press select and you would get a map, or you know, in a lot of racing games they have a nice mini map. This one, the mini map wasn't all that very useful in my opinion. And was there an actual, yeah, I think there was an actual arrow at the top of the screen, but it was too far at the top that, you know, trying to look at everything on the screen was kind of difficult for me. But then that just might be me. But the game would have worked well with having a pause function that gave, you know, brought up a map, so you could plan out what you were actually going to do. Because that game devolved into trial and error with me, which isn't necessarily all that fun. Actually, I stopped playing. Like the first video was like 35 minutes. Second video was like 35 minutes. The third one, to finish off the French campaign, was 2.5 hours when I The ambulance missions pissed me off. Not too much, but I was definitely getting pissed off at that. But the actual police missions were just as bad. Because there's no checkpoint system. The game will go and make you, and some of the actual missions make you go and, you know, go here. You know, go to this position, take this actual, you know, take this arrested guy, go bring him back to the police station. Take this injured person, go bring them back to the hospital. And you had to go back to the same area 5 freaking times. And if you failed, you had to do the entire set of, you know, people again and again and again. And it got monotonous trying to go. Oh yeah, by the way, I'm using that word a lot for no fucking reason. I don't know why. It's just popping up in my speech. Though, to be honest, I've also had to use that word quite a lot just because it's very... I've been going through a lot of things that definitely could be, you know, classified as monotonous. The game itself just started to piss me off. And then the final one with the actual, you had to trail somebody. Holy crap, at one point, the guy that you're following turns around, comes back at you, and it's trial and error. And I just stopped at this point because you go back, and then you know, he was gonna come out, and then I thought maybe this guy actually had, you know, he, you know, took a wrong turn. So he was gonna go back straight. So I went back to where we originally were. And then he started going down that way. And I was like, what the fuck? And this guy's actually, you know, driving forward. I was in reverse. And he caught me, and I was like, fuck this. That was truly actually trial and error. And I was not going to deal with that shit. After 2.5 hours of bullshit, I was not going to do that. So you're most likely not going to be seeing Midtown Madness 3, if at all ever. Definitely not for a long ass time. But actually, you know, it's not going to be anything bad. But you're not going to notice it. But I'm actually going to be taking a little break here. So again, you're not going to notice it. Okay, I'm back now. I didn't really... I took a 10-minute break. Speaking and playing racing game. Not the easiest thing to do, but... generally, in a lot of these tracks, you know, a lot of these races that we do professional, I take a break between them. Or at least between 2 or 3. But, I was thinking about it. I actually, one of the games I emulated that I didn't play too much, but I was just trying to get a feel for, and it wasn't all that bad, was Tokyo Highway Battle. It was something like that on the PS1. Now, a while back, I actually went back and rebought Tokyo Extreme Racer 0 because, well, it was there, and I kind of needed the filler game just because it's either PS2 games are $6 or they're 3 for $10, and I needed a third game, but I haven't tried it yet, though it has been a long ass time since I actually played it. And there's a possibility I might go and try that game. I just gotta admit that I think the PS1 game kind of possibly inspired it. I don't really remember the specifics, but I think that was the truth. The game itself, if you've never actually played one of those games, is basically you're on, you know, a highway and you're trying to go and, while driving, initiate a race with a racer and then lose them. Go, you know, fast as possible, lose them. Now, I never actually played too much of, you know, Tokyo Extreme Racer 3 or 0, so I really can't say too much about that. However, I did play, for some reason, Tokyo Extreme Racer Advance, the one on the Game Boy Advance. And that game, actually pretty good. From what I remember. I don't know if it still stands up to this day. Probably doesn't, but I actually had quite a lot of fun with that game. Again, it was basically you initiating a race with somebody and just beating them. There's like, what, well over 100 opponents, so you actually had to go and beat. I beat them all in that game, and while initially it wasn't all that interesting, the more and more I played it, the more and more I felt compelled to go and beat it. That actually happened with a lot of Game Boy Advance games with me. The Lord of the Rings: The Third Age being probably the you know, the biggest one I could think of, in which I initially didn't have all that much of a drive to beat the game, other than the, you know, fact that I actually spent like $14, $15 on it. I kind of want to play more than just the first 3 actual maps, but once I beat the first Osgiliath actual map, mission, and the one outside of Moria, one outside the entrance to Moria, that one was another one that took me a little while to go and beat. But once I beat those, and I got closer and closer to Amenhen, and especially after I beat Amenhen, I beat the first chapter of the game, I was hooked. Kind of like the entire Tokyo Extreme Racer Advance thing. And actually, like I said before, I've played a lot of Game Boy Advance racing games. You know, GT1, no affiliation to Gran Turismo, GT3, Need for Speed Underground, Underground 2, Most Wanted, Carbon. And which I actually did have fun with those, except Underground, because it told me I sucked and, you know, restart the game. I'm glad I have that experience of a game telling me to fuck off and start the game over. And I'm glad it was in that game, because I'd never want to play the game again. But, yeah, that was interesting. But I've also played, you know, Tokyo Extreme Racer. On there, I played SRS, Street Racing Syndicate, on the Game Boy Advance. Nowhere near as good as it is on the console, you know, console variant. I might actually go and play that one. That game's actually really nice. Not to mention, the videos that you can unlock in the game are also really nice. Though, to be honest, if I was looking for some eye candy, I could get that shit on the internet. But, that game isn't perfect. It's far away from perfect, but if you've never played Street Racing Syndicate, it was one of the, you can actually get it on the GameCube, PS2, or Xbox, on any of those. Actually, if you really want to try it out, it's actually on Steam now. And while it isn't, actually I think it's also cheap on Steam. But, get it, if you can get it on sale, try it out. It's pretty interesting little game. There's not much you know, in the way of actual, you know, choices when it comes to the visuals of the car. But the game is solid. The tracks are solid. It's just what the game expects out of you. Later down the line can get a little bit overwhelming, because you have to earn respect points to unlock new, you know, new actual events, and to do that, you actually have to win the race, and you also have to go and get within each and every single, you know, race you do, a certain amount of points. You know, respect points, drift from, you know, drifting, drafting, shit like that, going two-wheel and all that kind of shit. It was interesting, but especially later on when you're, you know, you're trying your best just to win, that doesn't necessarily come off as something easy to do. And so you have to go back to the, you know, the events you already did to see if you can actually squeeze out a few more points so that you don't have to get as many in the later ones. Reminds me of my time with Vanishing Point on the PS1. And we're trying to go and unlock more of those stunts. In the stunt mode, you had to go back to the earlier stunts to squeeze out as many points as you possibly could to unlock some later ones. Because holy shit, I probably wouldn't have too much of a problem now, but I was out of my freaking little mind, out of my kid mind then. It was so difficult to get those points. But yeah, don't want to go and crash into that again. What was I talking about? I was talking about Tokyo Extreme Race, but kind of drifted off into other shit, and so I don't even remember. Yeah, it kind of went into Vanishing Point. Oh yeah, that's right, Street Racing Syndicate. That game's fun. Again, if you can get it for like on sale on Steam, I kind of recommend going and getting it. I mean, it's not like Need for Speed Underground 1 quality, but it's a pretty decent game. If you can actually get it on the Xbox or, you know, GameCube or PS2, you can definitely find that pretty cheap. It's not going to be all that expensive, though. At the same time, you can get for the same amount of money Need for Speed Underground, and I highly recommend that game to anybody who's never played it. Underground 2 is a bit of a different experience, and I don't see it as highly as Need for Speed Underground 1 anymore. But if you can get either of them, go for it. If you want to be a little bit of a money waster, go get Need for Speed Rivals. Need for Speed Underground Rivals. Need for Speed Rivals is a completely different game. I haven't checked at any new Need for Speed games in a long time. I haven't played any of them since Hot Pursuit. Though, granted, that's a good game. But they still make a good game then. I don't know about most one. My brother didn't like it. From the demo, at least. Though, to be honest, it definitely wasn't made by the same people, so I can see why. Then again, with what they were trying to get at with Need for Speed Most Wanted, and the entire cop chases and going like that, I think that Criterion probably could have done, you know, a good job with that, considering the fact that the Burnout series is generally good. However, I believe it was EA Black Box that used to do Need for Speed in the Underground era until, you know, like Undercover came out and that went to shit. But I don't really remember who did that. But I really wish the guys that actually did that did Need for Speed and the Underground era, which I consider goes to Undercover until you know, Undercover bombed. But I really wish that didn't happen, because now they have now they have Criteria working on Need for Speed games, and there's not going to be another Burnout game in the foreseeable future. And that kind of makes me sad. Oh, I did say I was going to go and do Burnout 2 next. The day I was actually going to do Burnout 2, I decided, oh, what the hell, let's go and try to record Midtown Madness 3, which I've already told you what happened with that, and I don't feel like playing that game anymore. I definitely should have gone and tried Burnout 2 that day. I moved my chair because my nice gaming chair is either in one corner of the room with my PlayStation. Stupid motorcycle. It's either with my PlayStation 2. Crap, I'm gonna crash. My PS3. Or it's in my Xbox Nintendo corner on the other side of the room. Burnout 2's on the Xbox because that's the complete version of it. And I have the PS2 version of Burnout. When I moved it over here, instead of doing Burnout 2, I decided, oh, what the hell. Let's try out Burnout 1. Before trying out Burnout 1, my last time I actually played Burnout the original one was years ago, before I even played Burnout 3. I think we rented it too. Didn't really like it then. I consider Burnout 1 to be Burnout 2 with, all the excitement gone. Burnout 2 is a much better game. Burnout 3 and Revenge goes without saying. But I think I actually like playing Burnout Dominator more than Burnout on, the original Burnout. Which, given my experience with Burnout Dominator, which isn't necessarily other people's I'm hearing, their experiences with the game, mine sucks. And Burnout just bores me. Replay save complete. Okay. But what was I gonna say? I'm gonna be doing Burnout 2 later on. I'm probably gonna be going out Burnout 2 and then Burnout Legends. And then Burnout 1. Unless I get a new computer before then, in which I do own Burnout Paradise on Steam. I just don't have an actual... Actually, even then, I'm going to have to wait until a new computer just because screw recording it off my PS3. But, whenever that, comes about, I'll be playing that game. Paradise was one of those games I liked, but I didn't really like too much. It was different. It was interesting. But I had fun with the game until the A license. The A license for a lot of people, what I was reading online, is when, you go from crashing, not, often, but not too often, to crashing way too often. There's, two things. Number one, the obstacles increased. But at the same time, it also made it so that, or this is what other people have been, said in forums, your car actually can't take as much, and so you just crash easier. And the way that game is structured is not necessarily the same as something like Need for Speed Rivals. I mean, Need for Speed Underground Rivals, I mean. Never played Rivals, so, whenever I say that, I, take it as me, not saying things properly. But, Burnout Paradise, kind of like, Need for Speed Underground Rivals, felt like a checklist. Checklist racing games don't really do too well with me. Granted, you can say that something like Gran Turismo or Forza Motorsports is a checklist, you know, racing game. Except I feel as if I'm progressing. There's a sense of progression in a Gran Turismo game or an actual Forza Motorsport game. Just because you have to earn the money to unlock these cars, or, you know, just win these cars. To do those other things, you have to actually go and do license and the first 4 Gran Turismo games to unlock those other ones. You have to prove your skills to go on. You have to actually gain money and gain actual good ways of getting it, like profitable ways of getting it. There's progression, I feel. Need for Speed, Underground Rivals, you had all these races you unlocked at the very beginning. You just had to do things to unlock, you know, you had to do enough to unlock the next upgrades so you can go on. But even then, you're not restricted to just going on to something else. And again, everything's basically, or at least not everything's unlocked, but all of the first races in every single category unlocked at the very beginning. But Burnout Paradise, you had all these different races you could actually do, and you had to do enough of them to actually complete the game. Well, or at least go from one license to the next, in which you could not do one track. You could not do like one track every single time, or they weren't repeatable. However, once you actually, you know, do like 10 tracks, you unlock the next license, 10 races, unlock the next license, and then all those 10 races that you did, you can do again now for the next license, but within the same license you can't replay tracks, which it doesn't really matter. But the actual game itself, because of that, and just because of how it's set up, the tracks themselves, there's no track at all. It's kind of like Midnight Club, in which you have, you know, you have to get someplace, though, and this one there's an end point, and that's all you have. You have wherever you started the race and the end point. There's like 6 to 8 end points in the game, at least in the base game. Maybe 10, I don't know. And these different areas were the end point of every single race. You could start and, like, I'm just gonna say 40 different places, but you had to end in those places. And I don't know, I never really liked it. Burnout Paradise, considering I did play on the PS3, so the loading times are even longer. I never really felt the same enjoyment I felt with Burnout, you know, 3 and Revenge. Hell, even now with Burnout 2, I love Burnout 2. Even Legends. And one of the things I gotta say is the actual music in it. The music in Burnout games is a very big thing for me, just because I have all these memories of Burnout 3's soundtrack. All these good memories of that soundtrack. And, you know, just playing the game. I kind of expect a good soundtrack in Burnout Revenge. And, you know, by extension, Burnout Legends have great soundtracks. Dominator, I have to go and listen to the soundtrack again. I really hope I can find some good stuff in there, so it could lead me to new artists I've never heard before. However, my initial reaction to it wasn't all that positive. I mean, 4 versions of Girlfriend? Really? And then again, every single time I played that game, I would turn off the English and Spanish versions of it, and I would actually put on the Japanese and Mandarin versions of it. Then it's funny. Mainly just because I hear so many Japanese songs that have, you know, butchered English in it, just for the hell of it. And it was funny actually listening to the opposite. Somebody that speaks in English having just speaking in kind of butchered Japanese. I don't know, just kind of funny like that. But Burnout Paradise's soundtrack did not catch my eye. Oh, catch my ear. Can't catch my eye at all. Well, no, at least not initially. Not to mention Paradise City. It makes sense with Burnout Paradise, the fact that you're in Paradise City, but I think it's Paradise City. But I do not like that song anymore. I cannot listen to that song anymore. I mean, I still like Guns N' Roses, and probably one of my favorite songs they've ever done. I can listen to quite a lot, and that's Live November Rain. That song's great. But fuck Paradise City. I can't stand that song. And everything else along with the entire game just kind of never got to me. The themes to Burnout 3 and Burnout Revenge were just far superior. Burnout 3 had, I consider two of them, and just because these were the two that the game used most. The official one would be F-Up's Lazy Generation, maybe? Yeah, I believe it was Lazy Generation. Pretty good song. Short, but pretty good. Then there's also Independence Day by No Motive. Really do like that song. And that one's played in all of the training videos. And so I consider it one of the themes of the game. And, well, Burnout Revenge also had a really good one. It's actually one of my favorite songs from Yellow Card 2, and that's Lights and Sounds. Which at that point in time, I don't believe the album came out. And, well, the album might have came out in 2006. Revenge came out in 2005. If you actually go into Burnout Revenge, the actual game itself, there's no album listed under that song. So I think it came out before at least the album's name was finalized. But great song. Paradise City just could not get into that theme. It bothers me. Again, music is a huge thing when it comes to going and playing racing games. For me, at least, is 100 laps, an hour and 7 minutes of me going around this one track. Even though I've been talking with you, I've been, granted at a low volume, I've been listening to music. This is something, along with good track design, good track aesthetics, are needed to keep interest. And again, when you're going around the same track, how many times? What are we going to win? Hopefully, we're eventually going to win, or start winning, F1 cars. Please, come on, F1, F1, come on, F1. Fuck! We have to get one of those F1 cars eventually. Damn it. Because if we don't have an F1 car, by the time we actually go and do the F1 race, that's gonna... Oh well. What do we actually win? Falcon. It is 600. It is FR, which makes me feel like I don't really care about this. Yeah, I'm gonna just get rid of this thing. We don't really need it. And with that sold, we have over 2 million again. Cool. Oh well, see everybody. See you in the next part, but I'm not gonna be doing another endurance race.